welcome back to Room 237, and now we've come to the third of 4 films in the Umberto Lenzi Carol Baker Giallo box set collection from Severn Films, and it is 1970's A Quiet Place to Kill. Now, right off the bat, this movie has some confusion with the title, because its original Italian title was or is Paranoia, where the first film in this set, Orgasmo, was released as Orgasmo in Italy and Paranoia internationally. Quiet Place to Kill was its international title. So there's some confusion there, but there's also confusion with a later Giallo, also by Lenzi, called An Ideal Place to Kill, which is also known as Oasis of Fear and Dirty Pictures. I do have that film coming as well. So it's kind of a mess when it comes to titles for this Orgasmo and Oasis of Fear. Even though I think Oasis of Fear is the only one that's actually had a physical release under multiple titles, because there's Blu-rays, Ideal Place to Kill, and DVDs, Oasis of Fear. And supposedly this is the third film in the trilogy that this box set is known for. Apparently, Orgasmo, So Sweet, So Perverse, and this make up a trilogy. And when this box set is mentioned, Knife of Ice is hardly ever mentioned. If I had to guess, because a lot of times when it comes to Gialli, if there's a duology or a trilogy, it's not because there's recurring characters or settings or events. It's more so because thematically they're similar, like Dellamato's Schoolgirls in Peril trilogy. So I'm guessing that's the case with these three. I'm guessing it's like a murder for hire than trying to cover it up type plot, even though Orgasmo is a bit different. So I don't really know much about Knife of Ice, so we'll see why that doesn't get mentioned hardly ever, even though it is another Lenzi Baker Giallo, obviously. But this will be the next review. So, A Quiet Place to Kill, 1970, directed by Umberto Lenzi, obviously. And it was written by a slew of people. Rafael Romero Marchent, Marcello Coscia, and Bruno Di Geronimo. And I believe it was Coscia that wrote What Have You Done to Solange? Could be wrong about that. Yes, it was, because the only other one I can click on, it doesn't have any. And it stars Jean Sorel, which I've seen him in a number of Gialli, and he's been one of my favorite Gialli actors for quite some time, but I've always called him Jean Sorel. Jean Sorel. While it also stars Marina Kaffa and Anna Proclemer, if I pronounce that correctly, which she kind of looked familiar. See if she was in anything. Nope. And the music was by Gregorio Garcia Segura, although there is a song that appears in this, at least during the end credits, maybe prior, but it's the song Just Tell Me from Orgasmo, which was written and composed by Piero Umiliani, which I did know that before going into this. And the cinematography by Googly Emo Mancori, if I pronounced that correctly, and released in 1970. It was shot in both Italy and Spain. I believe it takes place in Spain. I can't remember exactly where. I had never heard of the place. It's probably not even going to tell me on here, because why would it? But so I do see some of the similarities between this and Orgasmo, because I have read that it's kind of a remake or reworking of Orgasmo, at least as far as Umberto Lenzi thinks. But okay, so it's not telling me where this was taking place, so why bother? Of course, if I wasn't looking for it, I'd see it in an instant. But anyway, I will say it's not quite as stylish as, say, Orgasmo or even So Sweet, So Perverse, but Lenzi's camera tricks are still present, like his pans and his zooms, shooting people like their reflections on a mirror or through objects like a drinking glass or whatever, or shooting around obstructions to get to a character. And that was all nice. I would say the most style would probably be in the opening scene, because Carol Baker plays Helen, who's a race car driver. I mean, it shows her POV going really fast on the racetrack. It shows up close of her. Actually, a lot of the shots of people are up close. He does a lot of close-ups. But she gets visions of Jean Sorel, who plays Maurice, which I think he was at that race. I don't remember, but she keeps thinking about him, or maybe she sees him, gets distracted, forgets to turn, gets in a wreck, ends her racing career. And she's pretty much left in a staggering debt with no money. We find out that Maurice is her ex-husband, and he's remarried to a woman named Constance, who's played by Anno Proclemer, however you pronounce it. And while she's, when she gets out of the hospital, she gets a telegram from Maurice saying, "Why don't you come stay with us at our villa?" And at first she doesn't want to, and we get flashbacks of sometime prior when they were married that she tried to shoot him, she tried to kill him. But there's no audio with that, which I liked, or at least, no words. She tried to shoot him and he was able to get the gun away from her. But she ultimately does go stay with them, which it sets up how impulsive she is, because she stops off at this liquor store on the way, and yeah, it's another one of those let's drive Carol Baker mad movies. I would say her performance is closer to hers in Orgasmo than So Sweet, So Perverse. And as similar as these two films are, I might still go with Orgasmo, but I did enjoy this very much as well. And the guy she was with, I don't even remember if it was her car or his, but like, he goes in the liquor store or to go ask for directions, and she hops over in the driver's seat and just goes to Maurice's house, even though she said she's not going there. And that's one of the things about Sorel's character, Maurice, is that he's kind of similar to his role in Fox with a Velvet Tail, which is a film I really enjoyed. I was very surprised by, because not only can he rely on his looks, but he's also got great charm that just makes him irresistible to all these women involved in the story, but also at just concocting stories and being very manipulative. And Sorel does a great job at that. I mean, I would say this and Fox with a Velvet Tail are like his most slick and sly and just most conniving. But if I remember correctly, he was the good guy in like Short Night of Glass Dolls, and that might be my favorite film that he was in. So yeah, he's a very good actor, very good Giallo actor. But once she arrives to the villa, Constance starts warming up to her more. Of course, Sorel is still acting like they're still married. He's all hands-on and smiles and kisses. But Constance, like, she watches her in the shower, and like when they're sitting across from each other at the table, she's like rubbing her foot up and down her leg. I don't know if she's trying to pull her in, see it. or trying to hint to her that she has a desire for her, then she'll break it to her. I don't know. It doesn't really go anywhere. But then she presents her with, Constance gives her this envelope with a receipt that she has paid all of Helen's hospital bills, and then presents the idea of, you know, I know you tried to kill Maurice once. I'm going to give you, I think she says like 100,000, I think it was, to go through with it, or at least help me. And of course, she's appalled by it, doesn't want to do it, but her and Maurice kind of start to rekindle their romance, seeming like they're going to get back together. And of course, he has this wicked hold on her. But in the back of her mind, she still thinks, yeah, he's a playboy that's just going to leave me again. Which is why Constance says she wants to kill him, because she's got a bunch of money. Like, I think she's involved with oil. And she seems to think, and she's older, that he's going to leave her for some other woman. So, they kind of agree, and they're out on this sailboat. And this is sort of the first turn, because I thought it was going to be more of an Orgasmo, or even more like So Sweet, So Perverse, where plotting his whole murder or killing him and then trying to, you know, maintain the facade that they're innocent as the investigation goes on, and she just goes crazy. But what happens is, and this isn't a spoiler, but this is the first real twist. They're out in the sailboat, and Helen grabs the harpoon gun. Constance is telling her to shoot, but, you know, she's impulsive, so she grabbed it, but then she chickens out. Constance goes to shoot him, but Maurice is able to grab it. He stabs her, and then they make the poor, I guess it was smart, because a friend of his, who I think it was the judge, is with his friends, their family, whatever, on another boat, and they want to meet up. So Maurice decides to tie Constance up, attach to the anchor, and then to get her to go overboard, they'll fake capsize and say they lost her. Which they do, but then I just kept thinking, they're gonna have like draggers and divers. They're gonna find, you know, this woman tied to a fucking anchor. But so then they just try to, you know, she's racked with guilt. He's trying to keep her calm. And then Constance's young daughter, I don't know how old she is. I don't know if she's like college or high school. She goes to a private school. I don't quite remember how old they say she is. But she comes back for a visit and automatically picks up that something's not right and starts to suspect her, which drives her even more mad. And that's the rest of the film. That's as far as I'll go without spoilers. I still enjoyed this. I think Carol Baker still gave a really good performance. It is kind of similar to Orgasmo, but like the same kind of performance, but like if she was one of the other characters, but she still is, you know, kind of going mad and just descending into alcohol, and you know, not just racked with guilt, but pretty much knows she's gonna get caught. It's not quite a sleuth movie. Like, it plays it off that the daughter's gonna be putting all these pieces together, but she really just suspects. And it's not your typical Giallo, because it doesn't rely on mystery. There really isn't much of a mystery. There are twists and turns, but there's also some good foreshadowing with her, you know, her driving and being distracted. Kind of similar to the scene in So Sweet, So Perverse with Erica Blanc's character, when she's just driving recklessly and Jean-Louis Trintignant is trying to get her to slow down. And that kind of happens once in here, and then something at the end, but yeah, it is kind of hard to really say that it is a Giallo, because there really isn't much of a mystery. Again, it's pretty much just, will they get caught? Does, Maurice have something else planned? Does he have ulterior motives for himself? Is Helen gonna get caught? What's the next twist and turn to come? But it is well written. His cinematography is still just as interesting as it was in Orgasmo and So Sweet, So Perverse. I would say those might have had more stylish moments, like the drug-filled craziness in this. I would say the closest to that would be like the POVs with the car, and also like when she crashes, the camera spins and we get her POV of the car going like that. The score, was decent. There wasn't really any pieces that really stuck out to me, but the locations were awesome. I mean, this villa is like up on a cliffside, looks great. So yeah, the acting and cinematography are the big standouts. The story, I will say, it is kind of a blend of these two, but it does have enough to stand out on its own, and I would recommend it just as much. But so far, I would have to say that Orgasmo is still my favorite of this box set, at least as of now. I still have Knife of Ice to get to, which to my understanding is more like a Giallo. But, so yeah, there's not too much to say about it, but at least not until I get into spoilers. So I can still recommend this. I still did think it was a good film. I always love seeing Jean Sorel in Giallo. So with that, I'm going to get into spoilers. So now I find where it takes place. Malorson. Sorry if I mispronounced that. I do believe that's in Spain. But this other friend of Maurice's is not the judge, it's a doctor. I can't remember his name. But he apparently was filming like 8mm, 16mm, whichever one it was, up on the cliffside the day of the sailboat accident. But he had also been filming Maurice and Constance just day to day, kind of building a whole movie for them. So that's kind of the first thing with evidence that's going to drive Carol Baker crazy. And this is after the daughter Susan, who, I did not say who played her, but it was Kaffa. Of course, it doesn't say it on the back of here now. Marina Kaffa, I think it was. And I did forget to mention that this film was shot by, it didn't say it on Wikipedia, but the cinematography, along with Guglielmo Malcori, it was also Aristide Chezzi, better known as Joe D'Amato. Joe D'Amato himself helped choreograph with the cinematography on this. I made a mental note to say that in the beginning, and I forgot, because it wasn't on Wikipedia. But anyway, so this is when the daughter Susan has arrived. She's already figured out that Maurice and Helen are sleeping together, and every time Constance comes up in conversation, she gets really shaky and nervous and on edge, and Susan is starting to notice that. And so the film is done being developed, that whole movie. So they decided to show it to everyone. And this is a good suspense scene because Maurice and Helen don't know what's on it as far as, them on the boat. And I love how everyone's watching it, and it keeps going back and forth between, like, Helen watching it kind of teary and worried, Susan kind of looking over at her, and Maurice kind of looking at the screen and down at Helen with his hand on her shoulder. And all you hear is just the spinning of the projector. It really good at building the tension. And then right when it gets to just the right frame where you can kind of see the boat with the three of them on it, Helen just stands up and screams in a panic and runs out the room. And Maurice just keeps giving her booze, and one night he gives her these pills to take to help her sleep. And that's when Susan comes on to him, and being the playboy he is, he agrees to it. She wakes up, walks in on him. Now she's totally pissed. She wants to leave. He says, I slept with her to keep her at bay, because if I said no, it'd be suspicious, and to show that you and I don't have anything. So I guess he did it to divert her attention or kill her suspicions. But she's listening on the other side of the door. But then, Maurice goes to his judge friend. Talk about meeting at the tower, because it's not really a lighthouse, but it's a tower on the cliffside. I don't know if they own it. I think they own it, but, that's where Maurice and Helen had sex for the first time after her arrival. And Maurice is talking to him about how, she's kind of acting weird and violent, crazy. I'm kind of afraid to be around her. And, can you come with me out to the tower tomorrow? I can't remember why he said, her and I are going to be there and I want you there. But when the judge gets out there, there's Helen's lighter, like a night dress, the bed's messed up, and there's some blood on the steps. So now he's convinced that Helen shot him and either pushed him off the cliff or he fell off. And he saw her driving the car away from the tower. So then she has a breakdown because, she didn't do it. And Susan keeps pointing the finger at her. And now she's pretty much under quarantine with all these cops as they're trying to get her to confess. But then there's a phone call asking for the judge, and it's Maurice. He's like, no, I haven't seen her all day. I'm at the doctor's office. So while that cop is distracted, Helen hops in his car, hightails it away, and this is the third time we see her driving erratically. And I thought this was interesting with how they did the foreshadowing with the race and when she's kind of driving recklessly but playfully with him in the car earlier in the film, because, she's driving, he's kind of telling her to slow down, and then he says, wait, watch out for the turn or the cliff, and she kind of swerves and stops right on the edge of the cliff. And then she makes a joke about how, well, you're in the death seat. Well, here, because he knows, because then Susan gets on the phone after the judge and is like, yeah, she just left. She just pulled out of here. So while she's, careening down the road, he jumps out in the road and she swerves and she goes off the cliff at that same spot. And you gotta love these old films because they really drove a car off this cliff. I mean, it doesn't hit anything until the bottom. It goes for quite a while. You can see the Carol Baker dummy in it. And it hits and explodes. But also, right before that phone call comes in, we see Susan dressed just like Helen with the blonde wig. And at first I thought it was going to be a shot of Carol Baker completely, insane. because she takes a shot of something, then it looks like she moves in front of a mirror, and we see Susan with the same clothes and the blonde wig. So it's like, does she see herself as Susan, or, you know, is it like Susan did it, but they think she did it? But then Susan starts talking. It's just the way it's shot. That was like a cool illusion. The way Lindsay does almost every mirror shot. That's when she says, yeah, that was me. That was me that drove from the tower. I'm the one that shot Maurice. You know, I know you were involved with the killing of my mother. And I knew he was gonna run away from my mother, but I can't have it be you. I think there was more to it. So she admits to that, then there's the phone call, she escapes, goes off the cliff. So it was foreshadowed because in the very beginning when she's racing, she was distracted by, you know, Maurice. And then the second time when she's with Maurice, he's the one that says, watches out, so it's like he saves her. She says, well, you're in the death seat, I'm protected. But then at the end, and she was more distracted because as she's driving, there's like flashes of things that have happened throughout the film, mostly Susan's face. So then he's the one that jumps out. He does distract her, you know, deliberately, and then she goes off the cliff, and she's in the safe seat, but going off the cliff and exploding, it's not very safe. And so then he backs down the road, everyone pulls up, and then he pretends to pull up, you know, for the first time, and they're like, yep, she's dead. But then he takes Susan into the car, and they say, you know, she pretty much talking about, it worked, our plan worked, you know, we made it look like she killed you, but then, you know, you turned out to be fine, so we just made her look crazy. She stole a cop car and she crashed and died. And how now they get to be together forever with her mother's money. But there's one more twist, and she did not know about the killing of her mother. That was never planned or anything, at least not with her. And that's when they hear a boat down below saying, we found a body. And she just kind of looks at Maurice kind of inquisitively, and he looks really nervous. And then it shows the guys pulling her body, Constance's body, up onto the beach. They did a great job at making her look like she's been dead underwater forever, like the shade of pale and blue on the lips. And that's where it ends, with that Just Tell Me Why song. So, like many Giallo back then, we don't get to see the aftermath, but, you know, and I guess you could still call this the Pre-Argento type era. Even though it came out the same year as Crystal Plumage, it does fall more in line with, you know, the 60s Pre-Argento. But we don't get to see the aftermath of these characters getting what they deserve or getting caught most of the time. It just kind of ends with just enough to know, like, it's all over for them. And yeah, it also doesn't say if they've had an affair for longer, you know, Maurice and Susan. But when Helen is freaking out after catching them and she's packing, she does kind of hint at, you know, has this been going on longer? Is that another reason why Constance wanted to kill you? But, so yeah, that's pretty much Quiet Place to Kill. Yeah, I would say I liked it as much as So Sweet, So Perverse. I got these all mixed up. I liked it as much. I'll still put Orgasmo as my favorite of this box set so far. But all three of these have been very solid gialli so far. Especially of the Pre-Argento era, which for the longest time I didn't like as much, obviously. But, you know, these have been some of the best from that period. And I think this is, because this is 1972, so this is the golden year for Giallo, my favorite year for Giallo. So, very curious to see how this plays out. Really the only post-Argento from this whole box set. But so far, this box set is a total winner. And I'm glad I have it. But yeah, 1970s, A Quiet Place to Kill. Stay tuned for Knife of Ice, and thank you for watching.